Hi, good morning, everybody. Just going to give you a few highlights from yesterday. First of all, I will go ahead and thank all of the speakers who participated in yesterday's program. I think we heard some really insightful talks, and I came away with a notebook full of action items to take back with me. I hope the others who attended did as well. For those of you who didn't, I am very sorry. You missed a wonderful day. Put it on your calendar for next year. Want to thank Program Chair Rachel Martin for organizing us, the wonderful program committee, Gordon McPherson from IEEE, Leila Jones, Sarah Phibbs, and David Weinreich with STM, and Joe Dinage for organizing us in a wonderful way. So I'll start by saying I really aspire to be the kind of person who comes home from an event at 7 o'clock at night and leaves 12 hours later to come back and has all these wonderful remarks and really well thought out summaries to give you all. So maybe when I grow up, I'll be that person, but this is not that day. So bear with me while I give you my still somewhat jumbled thoughts. I also will, on the heels of thanking Gordon, point out to you that he is listed on the agenda as being up here with me. So let's go ahead and say that everything smart that I say comes from me and everything that I forget is Gordon's fault. So yesterday we explored a question about how publishers can facilitate the interaction between science, policy, industry, and innovation such that the entire research and scholarly ecosystem can contribute to a sustainable future. We heard a balance of inspirational as well as immediately actionable takeaways. We had a great group of individuals from various sectors. So we got out of our publishing bubble for a little while yesterday and heard from individuals in higher education, from libraries, from an early career researcher about what's important to them as we advance towards a sustainable future. We heard some opening remarks from Dr. Arthur Ellis, who's been working with Elsevier on efforts towards a more holistic system for evaluating research impact with a lens towards social impact. He offered 3 very concrete takeaways for publishers and recommendations for things that we could focus on. One being tools for research offices and funders, linking data analytics and creation of narratives. Although I will say, having heard his talk, which was fabulous, I can't begin to imagine how some of us can compete with what Elsevier has already done there. So some possible actionable things that I will be thinking about as I move ahead is outreach to underserved scholarly communities, to build capacity and voice, as well as opportunities to use generative AI to facilitate research practices, and particularly around multidisciplinary research, as we know that advances in sustainability really require collaboration from across all disciplines. He also spoke a little bit to enhancing trust with stakeholders, and these themes around measurement, evaluation, access to broader communities, and building trust in the scholarly ecosystem really imbued the conversations through the rest of the day. We heard from a wonderful panel from ACS, from Cornell University, and from the National Academy of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine on advancing DEI efforts in scholarly research. Some practical ideas for broadening editorial representation, providing access. That was a key theme throughout every talk we heard, was access, access, access to all communities. We also talked about community engagement and incorporating evidence from lived experience in research and especially in anything that has to do with consensus. Inspiring stories came from our colleagues at Wiley, from Canadian Science Publishers, and from the SDG Publishers Compact Fellows. And a couple of thoughts about what we heard from those groups. Bill DeLuise from Wiley spoke about Wiley's day-to-day sustainability program and how they embed sustainability through all of their operations. And at first blush, this strikes me as very resource intensive, and how can some of the smaller stakeholders really follow a model that a giant as large as Wiley can pull off? When I thought a little bit more about this, though, Wiley's approach really spoke to me as a resource-constrained publisher in that they embed sustainability responsibility in all of their roles and all of their programs. And I walked away thinking, you know what? We can't all have a sustainability team. We can't all have a dedicated sustainability role. But giving each individual the training and the space to advance their personal interests in sustainability and move us towards a more sustainable future really speaks to the workforce. And as Bill pointed out, particularly the younger workforce. So I do think it's something that we need to do not only to engage our staff and our members, but do the best that we possibly can with what we have. Canadian science publishers, Natasha spoke about Indigenous communities and more than human authorship, which was something that I had never really thought about before. Really interesting approach that they are taking at that organization. And again, this speaks to engaging the broader community in the research and the literature. And the Compact Fellows spoke about their cross-sector efforts and tips for various constituencies, from researchers to libraries to funders. So again, that focus on sustainability efforts really being multidisciplinary in every sense of the word. Tracy Brown from Sense About Science spoke a lot about how we can increase trust and combat disinformation and misinformation. Again, she spoke a lot about opening access to the public and providing tools to understand and gauge trustworthiness. My favorite quote from Tracy yesterday was, "The essential question is not, are you certain, but are you sure you'll still absorb and adjust?" And she spoke to the need for the public to have access to research. It's no longer enough for us to simply gatekeep and say, we're not providing research for the public, we're providing research for the researchers. We need to provide that primary access and give the public the tools that they need to contextualize, understand, draw their own conclusions. So the key here is visibility. My writing gets a little sketchy at this point. Oh, okay. Views from the field. We then moved on into another Sarah's laughing at me. Another multi-stakeholder panel. We spoke with libraries, higher ed individuals, and this is where our early career researcher came into play. So they spoke a little bit about the state of sustainability in the field. Casey Redd from APLU gave us a nice overview of their efforts towards modernizing scholarship towards public impact. We heard yet again, this was another theme that came out in various panels throughout the day about the dangers of censorship and the need to provide access to all research and taking that away from the political agenda. This session also brought the elephant into the room. Who pays for all of this? Are the current models and the burden on libraries sustainable? And then from my perspective, can the publisher afford to add largely non-monetizable public impact efforts? And then the opposite question, can we afford not to? This led into an excellent wrap-up session with Stephen Hefner from IEEE, Colette Bean from APS, American Physiological Society, and Liz Ferguson from Wiley. And from their seats in leadership, they spoke about who's really driving sustainability in the publishing world and the scholarly ecosystem at large. What we heard was that it really all comes back to serving our individual stakeholders' needs. Liz spoke about the corporate imperative at Wiley. Colette underlined the fact that for societies, it really comes back down to the science. It always comes back to the science and what the members need. And Stephen smartly pointed out that publishers can't solve this problem themselves, but we each need to do our part, whatever that looks like for our individual organizations. For me, this concludes us right back at SDG number 17, which is partnerships for the goals. We truly need ecosystem solutions. We need to figure out how we're going to resource those solutions, and they must be multidisciplinary solutions in every sense. How do we make these partnerships less plodding is a key question that I think we need to deal with. Cross-sector, cross-stakeholder work can move too slow. And we, if nothing else, heard yesterday that we're truly in a time of crisis when it comes to sustainable development. I think the key term that I will leave you with is that we are dealing with wicked problems when we think about sustainability, and there is an imperative for us to work together to solve them. Thank you.